number all on it, but I have to do it. So I have to make sure I get to the ballpark early enough to get there.
Ferguson. I think Darrell Thomas had even caught one game before I'd come up, and my first at bat, I lined a double down the left field line and ended up coming around scoring on a pass ball, and scored my first run diving into home plate. And what a feeling, boy! It was really something. It was some way to start.
Then you had to wait a couple of weeks to get your first big league home run, didn't you?
Yeah, I waited actually a couple months. I was kind of jockeyed around in 1980, Ross. I was up and down between Albuquerque and Los Angeles, and I didn't hit my home run until later that summer off of John Montefusco.
Right here at Dodger Stadium?
It sure was. Went right over the 360 sign, and someone sent me a picture. Jack Clark was playing right field. He jumped for the ball and couldn't get it, and I'll tell you, if you talk to any major leaguer, hitting your first hit's a big thrill, but hitting your first home run, you're walking around on air when you run the bases.
And you didn't have to wait very long to be on a world championship team, did you?
Next year, next season, my beginning of my career really started off with a bang. 1981 was probably the best team I've ever played on. It was loaded with talent, both offensively, defensively, and pitching. And it was really a great experience for myself to play with such great ball players because I think it helped me to develop as a youngster. I learned so much by watching guys like Steve Yeager, Dusty Baker, Steve Garvey, Billy Russell, Davey Lopes, Ron Say, getting to work with guys like Bert Hooton and Jerry Royce. I can go through the whole list of great players on that team. It was just a great thrill for myself.
Mike, any other highlights come to mind tonight?
Well, I think that I just look back as a catcher. You think about the guys you've had the pleasure of catching, and that's where really my game is wrapped around defense, Ross. You know, as a catcher, that's where your focus has to be. I think what comes to my mind are catching guys like Fernando Valenzuela, in particular, his no-hitter. And the first game in 1981 season when he was kind of a surprise starter due to an injury to Jerry Royce, goes out and pitches a shutout against the Astros, who were a very, very good ball club that year. That's a big throw. Or Hershiser just being a small part of his consecutive game streak, his shutout streak when he first came up in 1984. Bert Hooton, Jerry Royce, as I've mentioned before, Don Sutton catching him in 1980. Bobby Welch. I've just been so fortunate to catch so many great pitchers here in my career with the Dodgers, and that's really the fond memories I have of playing here.
Mike, 1,200 games. That's some milestone. We congratulate you and may go on for a long time.
I sure hope so. I'm only 32, Ross, so I don't feel like I'm over the hill or this is any longevity streak. I just came up as a young age and was very fortunate enough to have a chance to play, and I thank the Dodgers for giving me the opportunity. Hopefully it'll go on for years to come.
Commissioner, it's wonderful to see you again. The last time we talked in Vero Beach, I asked you about realignment, and you had a great line for me. You said, you mean you don't think Atlanta belongs in the National League East? And I said, well, what about Cincinnati? Is it going to change any?
Well, I think realignment will change. I don't think it will change for a few years. We've got some television contracts, some long-term commitments, but eventually, perhaps.
I noticed that Doug Danforth said his idea is to have each divisional team play the other team in the division 20 times and go against the clubs in the other division just 6 times. Do you think that is equitable?
Well, I think that's the working hypothesis. I really haven't spent time talking to many people about it, but I think that would be fine.
Of course, the Dodgers would hate to see a team like the Mets or the Cubs come in here just 3 games a year.
I know, that's too bad. Well, that's a very big problem with the alignment situation we have.
Do you think that the imbalanced schedule in the American League has worked out over the years since they went to 14 teams?
Well, it's a difficult subject. I think there are problems with it. One of the problems you just suggest, you don't see the teams that you like to see from the other divisions as frequently. But certainly in the American League East, which is where I spend most of my time, I think it works pretty well.
Well, you told me in Vero Beach you were going to have to settle that dispute between the 2 leagues, and you did.
Well, it was not pleasant. Yeah, I lost a little blood over that one, but I did what I had to do. It would have been much better, Ross, if the owners had done it themselves. I think they regret that now. There had to be a judgment made. I did it, and it can be painful, but it's really my job.
American League President Bobby Brown told you he'd get you an answer about the two National League teams inside 30 days, didn't he?
Yes, he did, and I think we're hoping to do it in a couple of weeks.
Good to see you again.
Thank you very much. Nice to be with you.
Doug Danforth, who was chairman of the National League Expansion Committee, was quoted yesterday as saying he feels that in 1993 the National League will go to a scheduling system which finds each divisional team playing the other teams in their division 20 games and yet playing just 6 games against members of the other division. Does that shock you a little?
Surprises me, Ross, because it would seem to me to be out of proportion as far as the number of games that we would be playing with the other division. As I look at the schedule, that I like the alignment that we have right now as far as the number of games that we play with the Eastern teams and the number of games that we have within our own division. Obviously, there will be changes as 2 new expansion teams are added, but to be playing each team within your division 20 times and then playing each team outside of your division only 6 times really, to me, does not add up to what I would call a real sound schedule.
And this is Ben Hine.
It's a judgmental kind of thing, Ross, in that you have to be able to make the judgment whether the ball is going to be. It's going to look very foolish if you're tagging at first and that ball goes off the wall, and you're there. So the normal kind of standard procedure would be to go halfway and then being able to score on a double. Now, a ball has to be very deep for you to go from first to second. And some arms you wouldn't even challenge it. And this park out here, you wouldn't even challenge it in some arms because of the accuracy and the closeness of the throw to second. So I think it's a judgment kind of thing.
And this is Candelaria. The best part about it was Candyman night. It was Clark Bar Company had Candyman night, and first I think it was 10 or 15,000 people got candy bars, and it just, I guess it was a great promotion for them. It just came out well that way. But I knew from the beginning I had the no-hitter going on. I knew in the 5th, I knew in the 6th. In the 9th, I started to get up and go out to the mound, and there was Tommy Helms and Richie Hebner. And I just looked at them both and I said, go get me a pop and put it in my locker. I'm coming back with this one.
Were there any close calls?
There's only one ball really hit hard and say it hit it to deep center field. If he pulled it, it would have been a home run. Other than that, I really can't recall anything that was really hit hard. It obviously wasn't even anything close to Martinez's perfect game, but it was basically nothing that was really where you could say we could have got a hit here or there, and it just wasn't that way.
Who was the last batter in the 9th?
Coach here now, he's Mr. Russell. He popped up the center field, and at first I thought it was going to fall in, and Al Oliver just cleared about belt high, and I was happy, and it's just ironic. I'm here with Bill, and it's also amazing it's been 15 years, so longevity's good, I guess, sometimes.
I think if Jackie had not made it, Ross, probably we would not have seen a black in baseball for 25 years had he not succeeded in doing what he was doing.
Into the 1970s, perhaps?
I think it would have gone at least into the 60s, and that would have been a tragedy because there would have been so much talent. You would not have seen the Willie Mays and Hank Aaron's and those guys, I think, because they would not have gotten a chance to play when they were young, and that would have been a tragedy.
It's Terrence Slider Stadium. Okay, this is Dave Wright in 3, 2, 1. Well, let's talk about bats, and let's talk about Dodgers, and let's talk about things that they like and don't like. Share with us some of those things.
Well, a lot of these players are very superstitious. they want things in their locker in a certain spot, and they don't want you to vary from that spot. And some of them don't want you to launder certain things. Like Jay Howell's got a jacket that I would just love to put in the wash, but he doesn't want me to touch it. So you have to be very careful.
What about bats now? How many bats will the average Dodger use?
Well, I figure in the course of a year, including spring training, that the average player uses about 8 dozen bats.
Close to 100? Who uses most on Dodger trips, would you say?
Well, I'd say probably right now, Juan Samuel uses the most bats.
I've gone to a lot of bats.
Yeah, the type of bat that he has a very thin handle, and unless you hit the ball in the exact, correct spot, it cracks. So,
Anybody going the other way that they'll rarely crack a bat?
yeah, we really see Eddie Murray crack a bat because his bat has a big handle and it doesn't break.
Do they all like to have, 6, 8, 10 bats out there each night available?
Well, I'd say probably 4 or 5, available for each game.
What about switch hitters? No such thing as a left-hand bat and right-hand bat, is there?
Well, Eddie Murray is a switch hitter, and he uses a Cooper from one side and Louisville Slugger from the other side. And they're different weights also.
Mm-hmm. Who has the heaviest bat?
Well, Eddie Murray.
Okay. And the lightest?
Well, I'd say, Scioscia's swinging a 31-ounce bat right now, and Eddie Murray's about 34 and a half.
What about length of bat?
Eddie Murray's a 35-inch. And I can't remember exactly what would be the shortest, but around 34 is 33 and a half is about the shortest.
And most of the guys use about the same size
I'd
bats?
say around a 34, length, 32 weight.
Mm-hmm. Anything else come to mind about bats and Dodger hitters? Do they share bats pretty easily?
They exchange a lot. They even exchange with the other team, in batting practice. If they see somebody that's hitting with a different bat than they've seen before, they like to bum them and try them themselves. So you're always playing games with them. I mean, you order them a bat, and then they'll use somebody else's bat, and they want you to get that type of bat, and so you play games with them a lot, But you got to keep them happy.
So in other words, you're talking to the bat maker throughout the season, huh?
Oh, every day. I'm on the phone with the bat people, Somebody's ordering bats and checking up where they are. It's when a player, has bats arrive, it's like a kid in a candy store. And we try to get our bats mostly on the road to save shipping. Because you have to ship them all the way across the country. So when we get back east in the middle, Middle West, it's where I try to get my bats. So the first thing they do when they get to the ballpark, they see if their bats have arrived.
When they get the bat, do you see them sitting there and in effect just kind of massaging the bat, getting it ready?
Yeah, they pick them all out of the box and get the feeling of it. I mean, they can just pick up a bat and know if it's going to be a good bat or not. So I have to. A lot of people don't realize that there's a number on every bat, their number, and they think, and the players think sometimes that comes with their number all on it. But I have to do it, so I have to make sure I get to the ballpark early enough to get their number on it before they get the bat, because I'll never get the bat back again.
Do they use, say, pine tar on those bats?
Oh, pine tar, rosin. Some of them shave the handle a little bit. Some of them scuff it up so they can, get a better grip on it. So
Every guy's got a different pattern.
every guy's got a different pattern, what they like to do. Eddie Murray tapes his bats. He puts tape around it so he can grip it better. So
Is he the only one?
well, once in a while, if somebody's struggling, they'll try something new. And Eddie hits the ball well, so they'll try what Eddie does.
A lot of superstition involved.
Superstition, right.
Dave, let's just go back to 1990. How many bats did you probably use for the Dodgers?
Well, including spring training, throughout the rest of the 1990 season, I used, had to order about 3,000 bats. And that's not including what we call autograph bats. We can get, some of these players are continually being bothered for bats, and they're exchanging bats, and so I get a little bit cheaper grade of a bat, So this 3,000 amount doesn't include that.
And when the season was over, how many of the 3,000 left?
Well, I would say probably with the bats that are left, we take down a spring training, for 1991, and I probably took maybe 200 to 300 bats down there. And what bats of that amount we didn't use down there, then we leave there for the minor leagues to use. So none of the bats go to waste.
Well, this is Manny in 3. Yeah, J-Bill. You and J-Bill, I think, are the best bunters in the league. Is it a lost art?
Well, everybody thinks that. You got to work at it, obviously, to do it. I was with Jay in Cleveland. We worked on it a little bit together, but something you have to work at. A lot of people don't want to do it because they think it doesn't add to their ball game, but I think it's wrong.
I know in spring training you spent, what'd you tell me, an hour at a time sometimes bunting?
Well, every day before we got out there, I bunted an hour a day trying to get things back into perspective. This year during the season, we haven't done it quite as much, but periodically we go down to the cage and bunt. I only have 5 bunt hits, which is off, and that's why my average is down a little bit at this time. But Jay's is a little different. He's more of a sacrifice bunter where I'm trying to bunt for hits, but it's still a lot of work.
You see a lot of difference in the two leagues as far as bunting philosophies are concerned?
In different leagues, no, I just think it's people. I think people just don't understand how important the bunt can still be in this ball game. That what modern day baseball is. Let's sit back and wait for the home run.
There's a commemorative ball issued for both events. The All-Star ball and the World Series ball have a different stitch pattern. They're usually 2-color stitching instead of the 1-color red stitching. They're manufactured by Rawlings Sporting Goods, and instead of each president having their signature on the ball, as they do with the official National League or American League ball, the commissioner of baseball signatures are on both balls.
And this is Lasorda.
Not only that, but the president of the league. When I managed 4 All-Star games, and Chub Feeney always wanted to pick the reserves. Always wanted to pick the pitchers. So I said, okay, go ahead. You pick most of them anyway. And I took the heat. I can remember one incident where Fernando pitched on a Sunday. And I said, Chubb, he's not going to pitch Tuesday because of the fact that he's pitching Sunday. Why don't you pick Lawler? I said, Tim Lawler's having a good year over at San Diego, and pick him. And Feeney says, no, I'm going to pick, I want to pick Fernando. Okay, you're the boss. I get a letter from Lawler's agent really ridiculing me and criticizing me because I denied him of making $50,000, that he had a bonus in his contract that if he made the All-Star team, would get $50,000. This guy writes me one of the nastiest letters you could ever do. And here it all, in reality, I was the guy who was trying to pick him.
Mm-hmm. But it's the manager always takes the blame, doesn't he?
That's the way it is. You know what I would wish? I like the All-Star game given to the people. I mean, I hear a lot of people say that people shouldn't pick the All-Star game. I think that's wrong. It's their game. We should give it to the fans. These are the people who have make it possible for us to enjoy such a lucrative living in this game of baseball. They're the ones that support baseball. Give the All-Star game to them. Let them pick who they want to pick. And if sometimes they pick a popular guy who's not having a good year, that's what they want. If they vote that way, let them have it. But the one thing I would like to see change, I think they should pick all 25 or how many players they're going to have on there.
When you went against Hank Thompson those early years, that was really something, wasn't it?
Well, it was groundbreaking. It was history. There was never a black pitcher facing a black hitter on opposing teams in baseball. And we happened to have been with the Giants and Dodgers at that time, Ross, and it was a first, as many things were happening then in that era, as being the first, with Jackie Robinson, 47, and Dan Bankhead coming up to the Dodgers that year, and Dan Bankhead hitting a home run, his first time at bat, being the first black pitcher ever to hit a home run in the major leagues, his first time at bat. There was a whole lot of history making of that era. And this was just another addition to that, my facing Hank Thompson.
And Don, I don't think, you and I have talked about this over the years, I don't think that you have the feeling that the young fan of today appreciates that history enough.
I don't think it's taught enough to, especially black kids. I don't think that history is relevant enough to be taught in school the way it should be taught, the way other areas of history are taught with the presidents of the past and, civil rights leaders and all those people. I don't think sports plays that big of a part in societal history as it did back in my era when we were beginning this whole scenario. And I think that should be changed around. I think there's more that black kids especially should know about their heritage. Where all this started, where did Willie Mays get his chance? How did he get his chance? How did the black players of today, how did Darryl Strawberry get his chance? Where did it all happen? Isn't there some historical meaning to all this? And I think that's what kids should ask questions about and then be taught by the people who should be doing the teaching.
This is Paul, and do you agree with that?
Well, he has a lot more perspective than I do, and I'm certainly not going to disagree with it. I think the good side of it is that people like Peter are talking about the problem, and we're beginning to address it. We had an executive council meeting the other day, and I think we've begun to make some real progress in those areas. But I'm not going to debate Mr. O'Malley. He's been around longer than I am.
I know it's very important to you, though, to improve the relationship between owners and players, isn't it?
Well, it is. I think when I came to baseball, I thought it could not be worse. The relationship was just awful, and at least in terms of attitude, I think we in the Players Association have a more communal attitude. We're doing some things together. The Players Association made a $300,000 gift to BAT, which we administer, and the owners matched it along with USA Today, and I think those are good signs. They may be small and they may be a little obscure, but I think we are beginning to think of ourselves as one organization with one set of problems.
Well, we've talked earlier this year, you talked about how important the economics of the game are. Is that still the number one issue for you?
Well, it is. There are some major concerns economically ahead of baseball, and I worry a lot about it. We've got clubs with substantial overhead, and if revenues don't increase, those clubs will be pinched, and I worry about them. I mean, one is hard-pressed to worry about the Dodgers and the Mets, I should say, but they represent the big cities, and there are smaller communities where baseball has some problems.
You told me this spring you thought maybe salary cap was the answer for baseball.
Well, it is an answer. Obviously, those things have to be negotiated. I'm not sure if there's a better idea, we'd be for that. It's a very good idea. I mean, it's a revenue-sharing program. It has major elements of fairness. But there's no question we have to do some structural adjusting to protect baseball as you and I know it.
You now have the expansion behind you. You cleared some hurdles in the last few months, haven't you?
Well, I took a few shots, spilled a little blood, but yes, we're moving forward. Expansion was done. I think there's some parts of it that could have been done differently and better, but we did get it done. And I was in Miami yesterday, and there's a lot of excitement about that franchise, and I hope to be in Denver soon.
Last time we talked, we brought up the issue of realignment. I asked you if you thought we were going to have that 26 plan. What do you think now?
Well, I think we probably will. That's a Bill White issue, but I think that's the direction the National League is going in.
Phil, you broke the story that Sandy Koufax was going to retire at 30, didn't you?
That's right, Ross. After a game here in 1965, late season game, he told me that, called me off to one side, and he said, I made a very important decision tonight. And I said, what's that? And he said, next year is my last year. And I said, well, that's a shame on two counts. One, you're only 29 years old, and you're the best pitcher in baseball. And I said, the second shame is that I'll never be able to write the story because you can't keep a secret that long. But we did it. He said, I won't tell anybody if you don't. So it was really it's not a thrill to write that story because I really hated to see him retire, but it was a feather in my cap.
Surely was. Had the injury been so severe at that time that he not only realized it, but did it plague him throughout the '66 season?
Well, I think he won. I think he won 27 games in 1966, but he was having to do a lot of things in order to pitch. He had to take codeine before some games. He was taking butazolidine, which is
They give horses, don't
That's right, and he had to eat 5 or 6 meals a day to keep from running his stomach. And he didn't want to wind up to be a cripple. And he didn't want to get to where he could never play golf again.
When you think back to your memories of Dodger days, what's at the top of the list?
Oh, 1988. I mean, that's going to be the fulfillment of anybody's dream, to get a chance to go to the World Series, and not only get a chance to go to the World Series, but to be able to play in it when you're a utility player. And
I think you're the only Dodger to hit a home run in your first World Series at bat. Did you know that?
no, I don't. I really don't. And it was a funny situation because I told Dave Stewart that I felt that I was going to hit a home run that day. I didn't know it was going to happen the first at bat, but it was great. But you know, people ask me, what's your greatest memories? And a lot of it is not what Mickey Hatcher does. It's what a lot of my teammates have done. And 1988 with Oral Streak and Mike Scioscia's home run, that was the biggest that year off of Gooden in the playoffs. And everybody thinks it was Kirk Gibson, but Mike Scioscia, when they hit that home run, I think we were in trouble, and that brought us back, and we won that game, and I always picture that home run.
Mickey, most people didn't think the Dodgers could win that '88 series, did they?
No, they did, but like I said, we had a good group of guys. The chemistry was fantastic, and I think the big key to everything was the fact that we beat the Mets in the playoffs. Nobody in the world thought we had a chance, and when we went into Oakland, we figured that Oakland had no chance. We beat the best team in baseball, and that was the kind of motivation we had.
Name players in baseball who haven't signed. Candy Maldonado is one. Brian Downing, Fred Lynn, Rick Mahler, Ron Oster, John Tudor. And you start wondering why, and you talk to general managers and owners, and what appears to be happening is that the middle class players are the ones who are getting shut out. I mean, the owners are, giving pretty good salaries to players with marquee names, but after that, a little tougher. All right, let's check the traffic again in Southern California, and here is Judy Abel.
Ross, this KABC traffic update is brought to you by.
Is Peter around?
He is. Possible, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay.
House Temps at 1-800-540-5111. On the Harbor Freeway northbound at Anaheim Street, the slow lane is blocked with an accident. This apparently is causing a little slowing in both directions. And then the Harbor Freeway northbound is a little slow again through the downtown area due to a couple of stalls on the Harbor Freeway northbound just before the Hollywood interchange. Apparently, two.
When did Peter start, Jack?
I think it was last week, wasn't it? Or-
Yeah, thanks. We're just confirming. Thank you.
Any mistakes that he's made.
The two of them for well over 30 years. There's been a lot of hype and hoopla about this 1991 team with the additions of Darryl Strawberry and Brett Butler and Bob Ojeda. But somebody who has seen Dodger teams through the years and is supposed to have an objective opinion, we'll talk with both of them about the year ahead for the Dodgers. And then we'll have the training corps join us in our final hour tomorrow. Dr. Bill Buehler, actually he's not really a doctor, that's his nickname. The head trainer of the Dodgers, Bill Buehler, will be with us, along with Charlie Strasser, his assistant, and Pat Screener, who is in charge of the rehabilitation program of the likes of Oral Hershiser. We'll find out just about getting ready for spring training and what it's like. Clem Labine, how different is it you viewed spring training
3, 2, 1. Baseball Commissioner Fay Vincent has been in Dodger Town since last night and took in the game here today. And Commissioner, first of all, it's just great to see you back. How's your health?
Well, I feel fine. Thank you for asking. I had a tough infection over the winter, but I got rid of it, and I'm fine. Nothing a ball game won't cure.
They took your spleen out, huh?
They took my spleen. It would with me 52 years. I was sorry to lose it, but it had to go.
Commissioner, what one subject, if any, occupies most of your time in baseball right now?
Well, I suppose the general subject of baseball economics is the most concern. We have a study commission that we set up with the union, and we're looking at what the trends are in baseball. It's a major concern and a major opportunity.
Do you think that baseball will ever see a salary cap like they have in the NBA?
Well, if I were to guess, I would say yes. I think it's going to be very difficult to avoid some sort of an arrangement that fairly allocates the revenues, and I think that it's as good an idea as we've had.
Is there not a study committee made up of a lot of people in baseball who are looking into such a thing right now?
The study committee is comprised of union and owner nominees, and it is at work, and it is looking at really more the economics of baseball, what's going on that we both sides should be very aware of.
Commissioner, do you think 1993 is the key year for baseball because you've got to look at a new television contract, among other things?
Well, it's important. The television contract, the labor negotiation takes place that year. They always come at the same time. But on the other hand, every year is very important. There's an awful lot going on this year that's very important to baseball. As I say, the study commission is critically important.
We talked last year at Dodger Stadium about the fact that you would like to see a uniform decision on the designated hitter rule. Are we any closer to that?
Well, we probably aren't. Bart Giamatti said it well. He said it's the most interesting, non-life-threatening issue around. It certainly provokes a lot of talk. I think there are a number of American League owners, as opposed to general managers, who would support the elimination. But the union would be very opposed to it, and there are all sorts of difficulties. I just think it's the right course to follow.
Baseball Commissioner Fay Vincent, our guest today. We'll have more right after this. Well, we're honored to be chatting with the baseball commissioner, Fay Vincent, today at Dodger Town. You go around, you see a lot of facilities. This is going to be one of the best, isn't it?
Well, it is wonderful. And the thing that's so astonishing is that it dates back to 1948. People involved here, the O'Malleys, had great vision, and they've done a spectacular job of maintaining this facility.
Are you any more confident that you won't have to decide whether the American League owners get a share of that $190 million that the National League expansion revenue is going to bring in?
No, I'm not confident at all, Ross. I think I probably will have to decide it, although I am trying very hard to persuade the owners that it is something which I bring very little to. They should decide it themselves.
Are we going to see the two new National League cities announced in June?
Well, I'm not sure about June, but certainly before September, as early as possible, and I know the committee's been working very hard.
And they've gone to, I guess, what, half the cities now?
I think that's right. They're traveling this week to additional cities, I guess Buffalo and Denver.
Commissioner, is there any chance that when that announcement is made, we're going to see a realignment of the two divisions in the National League?
You mean you don't think Atlanta's a Western city? It's always seemed Western to me.
How about Cincinnati?
Well, a lot depends, obviously, on where the locations are of the new franchises. But I would think that really, depending on the locations, it's something that realignment has to be addressed.
A lot of owners, though, want to keep those old rivalries, don't they?
Well, and I think they're good for baseball. I mean, the Cubs-St. Louis rivalry has always been a particular one, and there's a lot to be said for those rivalries.
You look for competitive races this year?
4 competitive races, yes.
That's what you hope for, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope for, yeah.
What other things right now you're dealing with in baseball?
Well, we're dealing with the umpire situation. We've got a negotiation going, and we want to resolve that before the season starts. That's very important, and it's taking some time and properly. The umpires are very important to baseball, and they've got to be treated properly. There's plenty to do in this job. I found it very full-time.
Well, you were a chief executive officer of Columbia Pictures at one time. You were an executive with Coca-Cola. Has this been even more challenging than you thought it would be?
It's been more challenging than I thought. I worked for Bart, as you know, for some time, so I knew some of what was involved. It's a very interesting and complicated enterprise baseball is, and it takes all of my energy.
Yeah. Want to continue, though, for a while, huh?
Well, I will, yeah. I've got 3 years left, and I'm going to give it the best I can while I'm here.
Commissioner, great to see you back at work again, and we'll see you during the season, I hope.
It's great to be with you. I will come. Last time I was with you, Mr. Martinez struck out 18 batters, so Tommy Lasorda is always willing to have me come back.
You bet. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you, Ross.
Commissioner Fay Vincent's our guest, and we'll be back with more right after this. Sparky, talk to us about how you felt Jim Leyland handled the Barry Bonds situation, will you?
I thought it was probably the finest thing that I have seen done by a manager, and I don't know how long. I think what he did, he gave all other managers a chance to get some courage. If the incident comes up, I think it'll build up a little courage in them. They won't walk away from it. If I would have been an owner, I'd be honest, he'd be on my list right now. If ever I had somebody leave, I'd be looking at his direction. I thought it was great, especially coming from a guy that's only been up 3 or 4 years. It's marvelous. I sent him my congratulations over to him because that's an awful thing to have to challenge. And he challenged it, and he didn't walk away from it.
From Fort Lauderdale, to test 1, 2, 3. Greg in 3, 2, 1. Did you ever have a week in your life defensively like in that 1978 World Series?
No, I've had better games, believe it or not, but I don't think I ever had a series like that where they just get in that important of a series. But it was something that I was very fortunate. I mean, if they hadn't hit the balls to me, I couldn't have shown the people how well I could play the position.
What'd you have? 3 or 4 great stops?
I think in that one game, that third game of the series, I think I had four stops that prevented probably 6 or 7 runs.
And different guys hit them at you, didn't they?
Yeah, it was. It was different guys. Reggie Smith, Garvey, Lopes, a couple other guys. I don't recall them all, but yeah, it seemed like I wasn't picking on any one person.
I think you turned it around.
I think it helped. I think we were down 2-0, and if those balls get by or they hit the ball somewhere else and they win that game, we're down 3-0. It would have been very, very hard for us to come back.
What was the key to all of it, Greg?
The key was just being in the right place at the right time for me. I mean, but the key of that whole season was, even though we were down 2-0 in the series, we had been down 15 games to the Red Sox earlier in the year and came back and beat them. So when we did get 2 games down, we knew things weren't lost because we'd been coming back all season. And, it was just that little series was a microcosm of the whole year, the way we just kept coming back.
Big. I bet they're hell of now.
2.5. My daughter's 3.5.
How's spring going for you?
It's going real good, Ross. Our team is looking good, and I'm off to a real fast start this spring. I want to tone it down a little bit because I don't want to leave any hits down here in spring training. It's going real good.
Saxy, as you look back now over the last 3 years, would you do anything different?
No, I really wouldn't have, Ross. I'm glad of the decision I made, and it was a tough one at the time. I'd been in the Dodger organization my whole career, but I think with the way things have panned out, the way it's done for my career on the field and financially and everywhere around, I think that it was the best thing for me to do and for me and my family, and I would have done it the same way.
You were upset for a while, weren't you?
Oh yeah, sure. I wanted to stay in Los Angeles. I had a great rapport with the fans and the people there, and I really hated to leave, but it's something I had to agonize over for a while and come to grips with making the change, and that's what I did.
And now you got a new deal with the Yankees.
Got a new deal with the Yankees. Keep me here till 1995, and takes care of me for good, so I think I've done the right thing.
Boy, you had some great years with the Dodgers, huh?
I had a lot of fun times with the Dodgers, and I'm very glad that I started my career there. I wouldn't have changed a thing. And again, on the other hand, I wouldn't have changed leaving because of the things it's done for me so far.
Debbie and the kids okay?
They're great. My daughter's 3.5, going on 30. My son 2.5, climbing out of his crib, and everybody's healthy, so everything's fine.
Hope you have a great year, Steve.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it.
Steve Howe in 3, 2, 1. You've had a wonderful spring so far, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I'm here. So I've had an outstanding spring. I'm really excited about what's going on and the progress that I'm making on a daily basis, and so I'm really looking forward to a day-to-day basis.
And your life's changed, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I feel like it's being reborn again, and I got a lot of chances, and hopefully, this is the last time that I have to look back, and everything that happened in the past will just be a reflection and of what I've come through, and that's the way I want to keep it.
How do you look at your Dodger years?
I look at them as part of my life, a very important part of my life. I look at a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but definitely I look at a lot more positive aspects of my time with the Dodgers than I do negatives. Unfortunately, it ended on a negative note, but I believe that time heals, and that's the way that I look at it.
And you've remained close to Ron Baranowski, have you?
I've Perry and the whole Dodger organization. As I say again, I think that it's unfortunate that I probably talk to Peter more now than I did when I was a player for him. And, I do know that he's truly a caring man. And so, I look forward to, being involved and talking to him in the future.
I think all of us who've known you over the years, Steve, wish you nothing but the best.
Well, I believe that, Ross, and that makes a part of coming back that all the people that did really stick by me and that were my true friends and in Los Angeles, and I got a lot of them. That means just as much to me as all the other people that stood by me and helped me see this through.
Good luck to you.
Thanks, Ross.
Okay. Manny in 3, 2, 1.
Well, Ross, I remember that day when I headed into triple play. That's about 20 years ago. And Chris Shore was pitching. We have a man on first base. No, first and second, no outs. And I thought I was going to be bunting in that situation, so they let me swing. I fake like I was going to bunt, and then I swing. I hit a line drive to Bobby Wine, from Bobby Wine to Cookie Rojas to Bill White. And that was one of the greatest moments of my life because I began to be part of the history.
Lesson 3, 2, 1. Chris, as you look at modern day baseball, how's it changed since when you played?
Russ, it's hard to give you a definitive answer since I'm not directly involved, but from my point of view, which is outside the game now, and from talking to people who I respect and who do know what's going on, to me the biggest change is the fact that these guys don't have a family feeling like I think we had. And I believe the reason for that is that you have so many people coming from different organizations and only playing together for 1 or 2 years that they never really get close together. When I came up with the Dodgers, there were a lot of fellows who I played in the minor leagues with who came up with me, like Jeff Torborg and Jimmy Lefebvre. So we'd known each other a long time, and the veterans were, I think, more willing to get close to you then than perhaps they are now. Plus, we had roommates. After games, before games, we would go out together, talk a lot together. And I think that made a difference in the way we felt about each other and the way we played and the confidence that we had that each of us was going to play as a team player and not an individual.
Wes, the fact that you played on an all-switch hitting infield at one time, that's got to be historic, doesn't it?
Yeah, I really like that. I like knowing that and having done that, and it's one of the things that I think I'm most proud of, Russ. Even though it's not a particularly great accomplishment because it was more fortuitous than anything else that we all came along at the same time, I always liked team accomplishments more than individual accomplishments. And people ask me what was my greatest thrill or my fondest memory in baseball, and it still has to be winning the World Series in 1965 because it was a team accomplishment. And that camaraderie and playing together and being together and accomplishing something like that is far more important to me than going out and individually hitting, let's say, 60 home runs.
Right here. George Hudson, 3, 2, 1. You've got to be the only Usher Dodger Stadium whose son ever played for the Dodgers, George.
I think maybe I might be. I don't know of any other.
How many years you worked as an usher here?
15 years.
And how many years behind the plate?
Well, this has been about the 12th year.
Yeah. And Tommy Lasorda signed Tommy, didn't he?
He certainly did. Yeah. Came to the house twice, him and Ben Wade.
How old was your Tommy then?
18.
Yeah.
18.
Over at South Pasadena High?
South Pasadena.
Always the first baseman?
Oh, well, he pitched too and played the outfield, but first baseman was his first love. That was the position he played after he get on the pros and the semi-pros. He played first base.
Any other ushers here have boys who've been professional players?
I can't think of any. I've known quite a few ushers, but I never had ever mentioned a boy playing baseball professional.
You love your job, don't you, George?
I sure do. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Always good to see you working behind the plate down here.
I'm always happy to be here. I just like it's very, very exciting and have a nice group of people down here. They're always easy to handle.
We're down to
Usually people that have had the seat for many years, regular.
After the baseball, I was being bearded after this. Okay, you want my last?
Yes, name two. Yeah, okay.
Name. Ralph Epsom, you. I've been here 10 years.
Spell it for me, the last name.
ATAMUCT.
Okay. Ralph, Friday night was an unusual game because you used a lot of baseball, didn't you? How many?
We used 12 dozen.
What's the normal?
We used normally between 90 to 100 per game. And the reason why we use so many is because of the soil around home plate. And once it touches it, it scuffs up the ball and umpire automatically throws out. And in a game like last night, we had many, many foul balls. That's the reason why we used so many baseballs last night.
Well, tell us how many balls you used on Friday night in ball game.
12 dozen. The reason why we use 12 dozen is because of every time the ball hits home plate, it scuffs up the ball, and automatically they throw it out. And then of a long game of 13 innings, we have many, many foul balls.
What's the most you've ever used in one game?
16 dozen. And that was that game, I can't remember, I think it was 20 innings or something like that here. That's the one we used.
How many do you have available?
Okay, I rub up 7 dozen per game. Then I have 4 dozen rubbed up over in the Dodger clubhouse. Then I have 4 dozen locked up in my locker in case we run short like we did on Friday night's game. They got down to the last dozen, so I gave them my last 4 dozen I had.
How many could you have if you needed them?
Oh, that's hard to. Well, I guess. You know, like I say.
Did you ever get close to running out period?
Yes, I did, and I got a little worried. So right away, I watched the game in the umpire's room on TV. Then I also I see I'm running shorts, and I get down there, so I went pick up baseballs right away. I'd like to watch the game in there because they notified me right away. The bat boys, hey, we only got 1 dozen left. So that's so I try to keep ahead of them, and I watch it either behind home plate or I'm in the umpire's room. Then that's where we do it there.
Thank you, Rob.
Well, thank you, Russ.
Bill Peeper, how long have you been the Dodger Stadium electrician?
This is my 25th year of working the.
Jim Palmer in 3-2. Jimmy, congratulations on the Hall of Fame. I know it's got to be just the thrill of a lifetime, huh?
Yeah, the difficult thing, Ross, is it's the greatest honor that a player can have, but unfortunately, got to come up with a speech. And I think that the emotionality of the moment may. I've never written a speech in my life, so I try to come up with something, but I have a feeling that because of the emotional factor of this day, because I worked with Brooks Robinson back in Baltimore, and he's always told me that he didn't really realize the impact until about 6 years later because he was so nervous the day of the induction. So I'm really looking forward to it in a way. I want to get into the Hall of Fame, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it through the speech.
Jim, as you look back at your illustrious career, what highlights?
Well, I think most Dodger fans would remember 1966 because I certainly do. And, for a number of reasons, it was my first World Series, my first shutout ever. And, of course, I got a chance to pitch against the greatest pitcher of the 60s and really maybe the greatest pitcher I ever got a chance to see pitch, and that's Sandy Koufax. So that's where it started. And I think if I look back at the highlight of my career, it was my parents telling me I think you ought to sign with the Orioles and having a chance to play with guys like Robin Roberts. He was my first roommate. He's in the Hall of Fame. Louis Aparicio was my first shortstop. He's in the Hall of Fame. My first third baseman, Brooks Robinson, a Hall of Famer, and then Frank Robinson came over and the next year, and he's in the Hall of Fame and led us to that World Series. But there were a lot of thrills, and playing for Earl Weaver and having the dialogue that I had with him for about 14 years. But really being surrounded by some great athletes and being able to accomplish getting into 6 World Series and winning 3 of it.
Test 1, 2, 3 from the top. All right, Tony Gwynn in 3, 2, 1. Chris gets 3 hits the other night, and it's got to make you feel good. And I know you have to relate to his frustration, don't you?
Yeah, he's been frustrated, no question. We've talked an awful lot on the road, and it's a situation where he knows that sooner or later he's going to get a chance to go out there and he has to produce, because if he doesn't, he doesn't know when he's going to get another crack at it. So the last couple of weeks or so, I mean, they've been giving him a chance to play here and play there and pinch hit, and he's done a pretty good job. And like I said, I think he can handle that situation a little bit better than I can. I'm the type of guy who's got to be out there every day, and he's been able to handle it real well. But he's realistic too in knowing that he's in the big leagues. He hadn't been to Albuquerque yet this year, and really he's kind of adjusted to the situation that he's in and done a pretty good job at it.
Tell me now about Fred Lynn and the tip he gave you recently.
Well, earlier in the year, I felt like I was hitting the ball better on the road than I was at home. And at home, I was jumping at the ball and playing pepper with the second baseman. And on the road, I was hitting the ball the other way, driving it in the alleys and basically doing what I wanted to do as a hitter. And we came home from a road trip, and Freddie Lynn said, I think hitting in our regular batting practice time is causing some problems because of these shadows. And I had never thought about that. I mean, I've been here 8 years. The shadow's been there that long too, and I had never thought about that. So I started taking batting practice about 4 o'clock, taking the extra batting practice at 4 o'clock, and then not hitting in my regular batting practice slot. And since then, I've hit the ball real good. I've done what I wanted to do. So I've been thanking Freddie every day for that tip that he's given me, and it's worked out well.
You say that you and Wade Boggs are different hitters. Why?
Well, because I think Wade is a more patient hitter. He's going to go up to the plate and he's going to walk 100 and something times. And if I walk 60, it's a miracle. I mean, I think my career best, it might be 80, but I usually don't go up to the plate to walk. I go up there and try to swing the bat. Right. When I go up there, if he's not giving me anything to hit, I think I'm patient enough to take the run. But if he throws something up there over the plate somewhere where I think I can get my bat on it, I'm going to swing the bat and try to hit and put it in play.
What about the videotape library? Anything new there?
Not really. I mean, this year I think I've gone without video more times than I've done in the past few years. But video is always there to help, and I think this year more so than any other year, I can feel what I'm doing wrong. When something goes bad, I can feel it. And this year, the video has really helped me in one area, and that was early in the year. I felt like my front foot was opening. When my stride foot would land, it would land open, and that would cause all kind of problems with my hips and hands. And I wasn't real sure, so I went to the video and looked, and sure enough, my front foot was opening. And in that respect, it's helped me a lot. But as far as looking at pictures and seeing what they're trying to do to me and stuff like that, I really haven't done that much of it.
This is Drysdale. Well, I knew it was a hanging breaking pitch, Ross, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And then after that, I heard a little click, and I thought maybe it hit the knob of the bat. And then I realized that it didn't hit the knob of the bat. When he started to go to first, Harry Windelstadt made the call right away. Then I knew what it was. And you don't see it called that much, but I have seen it called. That's not been the only time. Before and after? Yes, I saw it called once before on a change. It happened, and I've seen it called after that on a real slow curveball. Matter of fact, I've seen it 3 times, and that one sandwiched in between. Did you ever talk to Dietz about it? Yeah, oh yeah, we kid each other about it. I've seen him up at San Francisco, and he says, "You're crazy." He said, "I didn't try and get it." I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "I'm just telling you what Marichal said." And Juan told me, he said, "If he throws anything but a fastball, I'll try and end it here." Of course, I always kid Herman Franks about it. He's always yelling at me every time he sees me. And I said, "Well, wait a minute, Herman." I said, "You had the bases loaded, nobody out. How come you didn't think of something?"
Russell.
Well, Ross, when you have a set lineup like we have, you really don't look at it much at all. Maybe you get to a situation where you want to pitch it. One guy, you might say, well, what's he hitting off this guy? You might take that in consideration. The last couple of years, obviously, we took it in a lot of consideration because we didn't really have a set lineup like we do this year. And of course, in the 70s, when we all had those great teams, we didn't look at it there. But a lot of managers do that, Ross. They like to play the percentages, but Tommy doesn't do that very often. You might get down to a situation, well, does Chris Gwynn hit this guy better than Javier or vice versa? You might get to that situation, and it might have some bearing on who you play that day, but Tommy doesn't, as a rule, go by those kind of percentages. He might look at our staff and say, well, we're bringing in this guy from the bullpen. We know they have this hitter over there on the bench. Does he's a switch hitter? Does he hit better from the right side or the left side? Now, you might make it, Tommy looks at it that way more than he does the other way.
Strawberry.
I'm feeling a little bit better. You know, the toe is.
That's going. You've waited for this for a long time. You told me this will be a miracle if it occurs.
Well, it's definitely a miracle, Ross. Just to throw one pitch on that Dodger Stadium mound is just fantastic. And as far as God has brought us through this whole thing, there are so many people He's put into my life to make this all come true. And I've got to thank Dr. Frank Jobe. I've got to thank Pat Screener, who's been with me on a daily basis, and I've got to thank the Dodger organization for standing behind me and not rushing me. And now that we finally pronounced me ready, I'm going to thank them again for looking after me and making this be a nice, careful rehab. And they're going to watch after me, but the main objective out there is to win ball games. We're in a pennant race, and I'm going to have to get my game face on, and we're going to have to go out there and win. But the God has looked after us very, very well and has put a lot of great people in my life, and I'm just thankful for another opportunity to pitch again.
What's the feeling going to be when you walk to that mound?
Well, hopefully I'm going to be able to block out all the emotions, and I'm going to be able to block out all the different things that are going to be going through. It's going to probably remind me back into the 59 scoreless innings, back into the 88 playoffs and World Series, and it's really going to be a time when I'm going to have to deal emotionally and internally with everything so that I can keep my game face on and pitch. And my main concern, it has to be the Houston Astros and getting those people out and executing the pitches. But I know that it's going to be tough because in '88 I had a lot of practice in getting ready for those emotions with my 35 starts during the regular season. And here it's going to be my very first start when all the pressure and all the excitement comes. So it's going to be a challenge.
Congratulations on what you've achieved.
Thanks, Ross. We've achieved a lot just to get to this step, and now we've got to achieve some more with some wins.
Bill, congratulations for your award this summer.
That means I've been around for 25 years.
I think a little bit more than that goes into it. Did you think that we would see the changes in training of Major League players we've seen since you came to the Dodgers?
Oh, it's amazing to just see the change. Well, to start with, when I started in the training business, I was going to be the greatest football coach in the world, and that didn't work out, so I went in the training room, and that was in about 47 or 48, I guess it was, and I've been there ever since. And that time we didn't even have ice in the training room. When it snowed, that's where we got our ice outside. So things have changed a little bit. A surprising thing about it, though, Ross, a lot of the modalities were around at that time. What has made it advanced the field so much is that technology with the computer has helped so much. That has made a big difference.
So many changes, too, like ultrasound just comes to mind for one thing.
Well, ultrasound has been around a long time, but diathermy has been around a long time. Muscle stimulator has been around a long time. It's just the fact they've refined it, cleaned it up a little bit so it's not as hard on the person. And then, as I say, now I can punch in on the computer. The computer setup, the microchips have made a big difference in the way you treat fellas.
VersaClimber is an important word right now, too, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's changed a little bit, too, because before, when you went to VersaClimb, you just went up on the hill to climb. Now you just have the one in your backyard or one in the workout room.
You and I have talked about the fact that it seems like there are more players on the disabled list today, but you don't think that's as extreme sometimes as it sounds, do you?
No, I don't, because it becomes an offensive weapon for you. Instead of having a guy, say, 4 or 5 days or maybe a week where you can't use him, now you put him on the disabled list for 15 days, give him enough time to recuperate. In the meantime, you bring in a fresh body, so now you're at full strength. You just have to work it that way.
Bill, what's the number one injury today for a baseball player?
Well, the funny thing about it is maybe the number one is blisters, but the biggest thing you run into is shoulders and elbows. And of course, we do run into some knee injuries.
Brennan, 3-2. And now coming up shortly, right after the 7 o'clock news on KBC, it'll be the Peter Tilden Show. The Dodgers begin their full squad workouts here tomorrow, 10:30 in the morning over on Field 2. The weather is great. More and more of the Dodger regulars coming in. Eddie Murray came in from Los Angeles today. We saw Brett Butler on hand. And everybody's ready to go, aren't they, Darryl?
Yeah, we're ready to go. Gonna have a great year, folks.
Okay. Thanks for being with us, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night on Dodger Talk at 6:05 from Vero Beach, Florida. And until then, a very pleasant good evening and good night, all.
Stand by for ID.
This is KABC Los Angeles, Talk Radio AM 790 at 7 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Tom Martin. Harold, thank you very much, my friend.
Thanks, Jason.
You're welcome.
Oh, 3201.
Sosha.
Yeah, it sure is.